Hello, my name is Asia Davis, and today I'll be telling a story about Sadie Tanner Mossell Alexander and how she made an impact on the world. Through my presentation, I'll be telling and incorporating scriptures from her diary that showed how she felt during the event in her life. I'll be including her early life, her college life, and life after Penn and when she attended law school, and life after her death. I'll be also including accomplishments that she has made in her life and contributions she has made in her life and after her death. The life of Sadie Tanner Mossell Alexander. Sadie was born on January 2nd, 1898 in Philadelphia, PA by her grandfather Benjamin Tucker Tanner. Sadie was the youngest of three older brothers and sisters and was part of two distinguished families. Sadie's father, who lived from 1863 to 1951, was the first African-American man to graduate from Penn Law School. During her early childhood, Sadie and her mother and her siblings continuously altered their residency between Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. This was because her father and her mother separated when Sadie was 1 year old. By the time of high school, she lived with her uncle in Washington, D.C., who was the dean of admissions at Howard University. During the time, Sadie attended M Street High School in Washington, D.C. Since Sadie attended the legendary all-black M Street High School, it allowed her to be exposed to talks about graduates who were living examples of what was possible if we applied our ability. The students attended lectures about Booker T. Washington, Mary Church, and W.E.B. Du Bois. Being an Afrikaner, she was in the presence of such influential African Americans. She wrote, "Help students study Negro history from living exhibits, not history books." In high school, she lived with her uncle, which allowed her to have frequent visits to the campus of Howard University. Sadie got the chance to speak to Booker T. Washington at her uncle's house, where she was exposed to his empowering words, which stuck with her when she graduated from M Street High School in 1916. Once she graduated, she was ready to attend Howard University because her enrollment while she was in high school. Dear Diary, now Howard played a big part in my life. They used to have speakers from all over the world come to Howard University, and I remember distinctly Booker T. Washington coming. I do recall they planned a reception for Mr. Washington, and that he said how he regretted that he couldn't stay for the reception. And he jokingly said that people who came to Washington and breathed the air of Washington overnight seemed to never be able to leave. After graduating from high school in 1960, Sadie was hoping to attend University of Howard. Unfortunately, her mother insisted for her to come back to Philadelphia and attend University of Penn. Sadie started in college in 1915 and was seeking a degree in education. During her first semester in college, she particularly faced many challenges due to the racism that she occurred from her classmates, faculty, and staff at Penn. While attending University of Penn, she was unable to check out library books and was also pushed aside when she asked for help locating a book when she asked a librarian. She wasn't able to get hot meals on campus, and no student of color was allowed to have lunch at the university. Dear Diary, not one woman spoke to me in class or when I passed one or more than one woman on the walks to College Hall or the library. Can you imagine looking for a classroom and asking the person, only to find the same person you asked for directions seated in the classroom, which you entered late because you couldn't find your way? Let us imagine you came from outer space and entered the University of Pennsylvania School of Education. You spoke perfect English, but no one spoke to you. Such circumstances made a student either drop out or a survivor so strong that she could not be overcome. Concerned of the health of her elderly grandfather and her dependence on him for tuition, Sadie decided to complete her degree in 3 years. She started her sophomore year the following summer and lessened the financial burden on her family. By Sadie's junior year, she received a graduate scholarship from the Dean of Education. Sadie began graduate school in 1990, where she won the Francis Surratt Pepper Fellowship Award and received her Master's of Arts degree in economics. In June of 1921, at the age of 32, Sadie was awarded her PhD in economics and became the first African American woman in the United States to receive that degree in economics. Once she received her degree, she struggled to find employment in the field of economics. Her issue was when she applied for jobs in the area of Philadelphia, she couldn't get hired because she was African American. She was eventually hired as an assistant by a Black-owned mutual life insurance company in Durham, North Carolina. While working in North Carolina, Sadie met her husband, Raymond Pace. Sadie and Raymond got married on November 29th at the Tanner family home on Diamond Street. The newly married couple stayed in Philly because Sadie's husband had to finish law school at University of Harvard. While her husband was in law school, she became inspired to obtain the similar degree for herself and applied to the School of Law at University of Penn. In 1924, Sadie Alexander was the first Black woman to enroll in the School of Law at Penn. In 1927, Sadie became the first African American woman to practice law in the state of Pennsylvania. She managed her private law firm with her husband until 1959 when she opened her own firm because her husband became a judge in Philadelphia. Sadie started to work with civil rights and family law because she was racially profiled in the Philadelphia theater while attending a play one night. In 1946, President Truman appointed her to serve on a newly formed President Committee on Civil Rights. Her job was to prepare a report on the state of civil rights for Blacks. She was worked on cases that related to desegregation of public spaces in Philadelphia, such as movie theaters and hotels and restaurants. In 1974, Sadie's husband, Raymond Pace, died, and she retired from her hectic schedule. She closed her law office after Raymond's death and joined the law firm of Myers and Archie in 1976. She served as a counselor there until 1982 when she began to suffer from Alzheimer's disease and retired from the law. In 1978, President Jimmy Carter had appointed her as the chairperson of the White House Conference on Aging. She continued to serve in the capacity until the President Ronald Reagan removed her from the office in 1981. After passing away on November 1st, 1989, Sadie Alexander is memorialized today in the name of one of the Philadelphia K-8 public schools. Also proposed in 1989 and opened 2001 was the Penn Alexander School, which provides children in its attendance zone with research-based instructions and holds them to a high academic standard. Thank you for watching the story of Sadie Tanner Mossell and how she made amazing and huge impacts on the world.